Hello, everyone.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. And why is oh, that doesn't work. Never.
Lex, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yep.
Okay, good.
I think we were a little bit early, but is there anyone else we're waiting on?
Um, who all was going to be attending from HPC, Joe?
Judd said he would be there in person.
He is here. I'm here.
Okay. Um, I see Kenny. I don't see Mike said he would be here via Zoom, and I don't think Jared is able to attend this one.
Okay. So Mike is the only one we're short right now.
Okay.
Make sure your email to Mike went through. I know when I had attachments, I had issues sending him anything with an attachment.
Say that again?
Check your email to Mike and make sure it didn't come back as undeliverable. I have issues sending him things. I have issues sending him emails with attachments. Like if there's an attachment, it fails or kicks it back regularly.
Hmm.
But there is three of you. So
Let me give him a call real quick.
Yeah, Joe, let's give him a second. I texted him earlier to see if he was going to be attending, and he seemed to indicate yes. So
Okay, we'll wait a minute.
I'll text him right now. I got my phone up.
Okay, you go ahead, do that, Kenny.
Yep. Yeah, we're right at 4 o'clock. There he is.
There he is. Yeah, okay.
Okay. I think everybody's here that needs to be, or that said they would.
Yep.
So it's 2:01. We'll formally start the workshop for Lake City's Historic Preservation Commission.
Yeah.
And I guess, Mike, why don't you go ahead and do a roll call?
You're on mute.
Mike, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Hey, there it is. Okay. How about now?
Okay.
Kenny,
Here.
Joe,
Here.
Jared,
He's not here yet.
Judd. All
Present.
right. We done?
And then we have, Lex is here and, well, I see it's Mally's here. I see Mally just waved and it's Jonathan, right?
That's right. We're here.
Okay. I guess, Jonathan, why don't you, how far along do you think, how far along is this project? And when is you call it a charrette, there's going to be a thing with the town sometime in the near future. Just explain a little bit about where you see this process.
Yeah. So basically, we've went through a few different site plan iterations. We've looked at interior layouts and some of the functionality between the units and that type of thing. And right now, we're at the point where we're trying to finalize the exteriors and this overall site plan so that we can kind of move forward into construction documents. Once we get your input, that's kind of the purpose of this meeting is to get everyone's feedback on the historic side of things, implement those changes, maybe share that to you guys again to get any final feedback on that. And then we'd like to meet with basically some citizens from the town to go through and show what we've accomplished and done since the last time we all met. Maybe show some material finishes and things like that for them to weigh in on, and then finalize those decisions, and then get the drawings going. So we can get these things built. So that's kind of the overall goal. Is to kind of collect your feedback today, and we can explain a little bit of our thinking and how we approach some of the more historical kind of scale to the project and how we ended up with some of the layout that we ended up with. But that's kind of where we're at. So,
Well, why don't you go ahead and do that? Yeah, your interpretation of what our guidelines say and how you've gone about following those.
okay.
When is the public meeting that would be planned?
We haven't scheduled it yet.
Well, how far in the future is that, or do we have any idea?
We'd like to get a little bit more engagement. So we're hoping sometime in the late spring so that more people are in town.
Okay, that's all I
Potentially
wanted to know.
Early
Yeah.
summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And kind of that meeting is going to be more about the exterior and aesthetics more so than the interior. And so we're going to try to continue to move the project forward as we go and give kind of some feedback options that I think will make sense while we still do some of those things. But I'm happy to kind of take you through some of it. And is it okay if we share our screen and show you some stuff or?
Yeah, and again, remember, we're dealing primarily with exterior business as well as site plan and massing and so on relative to other buildings in the historic district and whatnot.
Yeah, and that was really why we wanted to get this in front of you guys as soon as we could and get that feedback before we show it to everyone else to make sure that you're comfortable before we start showing anything to the rest of the town. So,
I guess, is everybody familiar with some of our constraints that we had on the site for the town? Would it be helpful to go through any of those?
Briefly go through that, yeah.
Please.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we were mandated by the state. We needed to fit 28 units on the property. Obviously, with the trail and the let's call it a bit of a ravine ditch going into the river. So we did our best to really think about mass and scale from the Henson Street perspective. And in order to fit those units, we did have to add more density towards the back of the site in the river. But we hope that we've accomplished something that feels dense, but with the street frontage still preserved. And I think if we can walk away today with some notes on where you guys want to see materiality go, as well as some detailing, that would be really successful for us to take next step.
Well, let's explain that a little bit. I mean, the street. Explain what you mean is how the street part is different than the part. I mean, you say it's more dense in the back. Is that the main difference between the two?
Yeah, so basically, when we started, we were trying to just see how we could create the most open space possible. And so we ended up with rather tall buildings. They were 3 stories tall. And we tried to keep them a little bit smaller in the front, but just because of the number of units we needed to make um, happen on the site with the parking. And then there is this kind of drainage area to the north here on the site. And so, with all those kind of restraints, it made sense to start with going up. But once we looked at the guidelines and we really started to study the site more, it made more sense for us to try to keep these as 2 story units. And so these in the back, we kept 2 stories with access from the front at the parking level. And then you access the upper units from a balcony that goes across the back of the buildings. And so we tried to reduce kind of the amount of circulation because that was what was happening is we had 4 buildings along the back and there's a lot of stairs and a lot of unnecessary circulation. And so this really simplified that by kind of creating a little bit of a wider set of units, but doing 2 sets with shared circulation really helped us kind of make it like declutter it a little bit and make the buildings much shorter by an entire story. And so that's why the back is a little bit more dense. And what we tried to accomplish was hiding that density with these more narrow looking units in the front. And so these units in the front essentially have 2 units stacked on top of each other, and they're split by a staircase in the middle. And we push that staircase back to separate the buildings and create more of that historic rhythm of the buildings. And we try to get as close to that kind of narrow dimension that is in the guidelines that we could. And that's why these front units are kind of more of almost like a shotgun style shape. But they're 2 stories. And then when they're 2 bedrooms, we kept that pushed back so that that didn't impact the front facade and that kind of rhythm that we were trying to create. It's shown a little bit better in the rendering, so I'll jump over there.
Yeah, we actually are seeking a very small variance up front because our units are actually not wide enough for the affordable side.
Yeah.
So we're trying to balance many things.
Yeah. So these I think kind of help hide the ones in the back. I think the ones in the back are also very nice, and we tried to treat them as individual buildings. And so that's the color is really there to help kind of differentiate and show you the massing. And so the colors will probably change a little bit, but that's the idea is that these feel like individual homes that are more like in the back, more like a townhome, and in the front, more of that traditional scale. And we tried to break that up as much as we could while still making them somewhat efficient with circulation and helping people get around. And we wanted to create some green space between, and we're working with our civil engineer to get a little bit more space between the units so that there's less icing in those pathways. Um, but that's kind of the focus of what we've been working on.
This also doesn't have any grade taken into consideration, so there's a bit of a drop right at Henson Street. So they'll be a little more tucked into the site.
Yeah, and that basically, yeah, what Mally's alluding to is on this front side of the buildings, this grade may come up and make the buildings feel even shorter than they are right now. We just haven't implemented that into our renderings or our model yet. We're waiting on Civil to kind of do their final layout before we implement that. But this grade kind of comes up at the street. And so the buildings may be recessed a little bit more into the grade, which would be, I think, helpful as well. So,
Okay, thank you. I mean, my first in general, I like the layout. It follows the. I mean, I think as close as given the amount of or the number of units you say and so on to fit these things in, it follows the guidelines reasonably well in having the separate units there, especially along the front. I got a few more comments, but I want to open it up to other members of the commission first, before I say too much on things.
Thank you, Joe.
Um,
One question I've got just on the windows, is there going to be any, or what type of windows are y'all planning right now?
so that's a great question. Right now, these are kind of more of a placeholder. We were trying to do a more traditional shape with the being a rectangle, but we can add divisions. We can make them operable. We can add mullions. These aren't set in stone. That's one of the opinions we'd love to get from you guys. Is that proportion close to what you would be looking for? Do we need to make them skinnier, wider? We can definitely make them like a double or a single hung window where it's operable, and I think that'll help break them up a little bit as well. But we are definitely open to those types of suggestions and adding trim and some more detailing as well to those, especially to the front units.
To me, that would be, the sizing to me looks fine. I would like to see, the single hung, especially in the summer. It does get warm, but it also would be more, I think, instead of just being like a fixed glass, even if it's a casement or something. And then the other one, I would not like on the whole, but like on the second floor, and at least on what's exposed to the Henson, maybe some little added molding. That just not necessarily even all the windows, but at least the upper when you drive by. But I'd like to see that, and that would be. I don't think either one of those would be that much more expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, no, those are all good feedback. I think those are things we can definitely add in there is come up with some trim details for the windows. Maybe we can make them a little bit different in different buildings. And we'll definitely kind of work through the windows. We kind of did these as a placeholder as we work through the interiors. And once we've set the window locations, we'll kind of update those to be more operable and have the mullions and other items that you guys are looking for.
No, I guess
Mike,
Mike, go ahead.
I think it looks great. I love the thinking that you guys put into it, and this is something that our community has needed for such a long time, and I'm really impressed with it. Yeah, we're not. It's not my place to talk about aesthetics, but I think the aesthetics are great. I love the color. I love. Yeah, I thank you. I think it's really well done. And I like
Thank
the
you.
Thank you, Mike. That's so nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we appreciate it. We were really happy with where it's landed. So
I guess I'll go next. The Mike, if you're done.
Yep.
Look, I think given the constraints laid out, you guys have done a pretty good job here. Given the considerations that are made toward lower density on Henson, kind of trying to push the more density toward the back so it's not as visible. I echo kind of what Judd said. I think we'd like to see as this thing continues to progress, window treatment selection, things like that. But generally, not a ton of concerns. I understand the point you made about the grade drop. I've got the Google Maps up at the moment, and you can clearly see it on the street view. So, I mean, it would, depending on that and the placement of landscaping, tend to help hide. But it's given the constraints, nice set of layouts here.
Great.
Thanks.
No major objection.
Okay, I got a few comments, and I'm going to relay some of Jared's comments. I had a discussion with him before. But some of the ones that I put out here, I kind of like to hear what you other guys think. And I'll try to point out where I'd like to see some feedback from you guys on it. Jared and I had an interesting back and forth on, I like the idea that there's a little bit of difference along Henson there in the setback. Jonathan, you mentioned a minute ago the possibility of having differentiation in the windows from one building to another. I like that idea. I think rather than having them all the same, if there could be some differentiation. I know all of this stuff comes back to, and I don't know how it does, but the costs of things and so on. But if some of these kinds of things can be developed at this point into your plans, I think that'd be great. But in the past, we have, for example, asked for new residences in the heart of the historic district to have divided windows, at least on the front of the buildings. I would suggest that as a possibility for at least on the front. If there's some differences in the way, either in the configuration of the windows or in the style or trim and things like that, I think the differentiation would be nice to have.
Yeah, we can definitely do that, and I can speak to that a little bit. I know one of the guidelines had talked about lining up the front facades of buildings, and one of the things that we had some feedback on was looking at what if we shifted one of the buildings forward, and so that's what we did with this middle unit. These two on the end line up, but we pulled the middle unit out. So as you look down the street, you're going to get a little bit. That's going to break that up a little bit, so they're not so much in line. And so that's an option. If we want to keep that in line, we can pull it back. But we kind of did like that feeling of it not necessarily lining up. It does add some difference between the buildings visually just by doing that move. The other differences between these are this building here has two one bedrooms. This building has one bedroom and a two bedroom, and so that breaks up the roof height on this unit. It doesn't have that second story bedroom. And the middle is a little bit bigger because it's in the middle, and so it has the two bedrooms on both levels. And then on the very end here, it's all four one bedroom units. And so by mixing up the unit types, it actually changes each building and makes each one unique. And we try to break it up in different ways throughout all three buildings, and that way you get a different feel. And so that can change the windows a little bit, especially in the back. But we can definitely look at bringing that to the front as well and make some of these front facades a little bit more different. But that was really what we were kind of experimenting with the buildings, was to break it up in different ways using the site as well as the way the units themselves are laid out. So,
well, I like having that. That's something you think about in having some differentiation of the buildings. I can mention Jared and I had a little discussion about the setback business. The design guidelines do say specifically to try to have, new construction fit in with the neighborhood of the setback other buildings there. This block doesn't have too much in terms of other similar kind or residential stuff.
Yeah.
But I personally like the idea of having a bit of differentiation, not too much, but a little bit difference in the setback. It gives you a little bit of difference as you go down the block there. I like that. One of the things I wanted to ask was, I'm curious. Well, okay. One, I assume the roofs are all going to be metal or what?
Yeah, that was the plan. Was we were gonna plan on metal roofs, just because of the to help with the ice and other elements where they kind of come together. I think they'll be a little bit more sealed with the metal, and I think the aesthetic kind of fits with the rest
Yeah.
of that, that feel in the town. So
Okay, my question is this: how does the Colorado's new building code business associated with fire resistance and so on affect how you think about what the siding would be?
so the metal roof actually helps us a lot there. That's definitely a fire resistant material. The facades themselves, we would look at probably like a cement board siding that looks more like a wood, and so that it also would be something that would be fire resistant. If we decided to go with actual wood, there's treatments that you can add to the wood to make it more fire resistant. You can actually even char the wood, which gives it a really nice texture and also makes it fire resistant. So there's lots of ways to manage that. And I think everything we have in the model currently would meet those standards.
Okay, well then, I mean, again, this is my opinion on it, but if you could have some differentiation, if the materials that you used were appropriate for the fire resistance business, but if some was this treated wood and some other was the cement board stuff, just to give the differentiation, I like that. But I'd like to hear what the other people on the board think about that, the whole idea of having differentiation and so on.
Joe, can I chime in real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're hoping to maybe we're going to be considering doing this modular or as a flat pack system because it's so expensive to build out here. That's even where how they've designed it. These can be replicated, and we could have it, have the walls and things produced off site, and they come together and they pop it up and put it together. I mean, is that accurate, Jonathan? I might be way oversimplifying it.
No, that's correct. We would basically build the walls somewhere else and bring them all in and then assemble them on site. I think bringing the entire building would be tricky with the road as curvy
Yeah.
as everything is, but bringing them in as flat packed would work. And then the siding could be applied after the fact.
Well, just the more variation there is, the more expense there is. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay, well then, so my question is, yeah, how much does it affect the cost on that kind of stuff? And Lex, I think you were saying that with regard to the overall cost and so on, the town might be thinking about doing some of it to start out with, and as more money became available to add things later, and it would
Right.
be easier if the same kind of things kept coming in rather than changing them each time, right?
But yeah, and then there, with like you said, with the siding, there's probably options there where that might be a possibility, especially if we phase it. So y'all
Yep.
continue to have your conversation. Don't listen to me. We
No,
might be able to make it work.
You're good. One of the things we were looking at, excuse me, was maybe building like these four units all at the same time, and then building these four units at another time. And so that all works with that phasing. We've actually structured it to where technically you could build each one of these units independently of each other, and that would still work. So there's lots of options towards that side of things. But to your point around materials, they do make a lot of different materials now. The technology's gotten really good with different types of wood. They even have aluminum that, aluminum siding's never been great in the past, but they actually have a really good aluminum now that looks identical to wood, and it lasts a really long time because it's a thicker gauge than what they used to use back in the 70s, and it actually looks really good. So there's a lot of options for fire rated facades that still give you that natural wood, and we do want to have some, you can see it kind of interspersed. We do have some real wood tones, and we want to do that as well. So we're going to do our best to fit those types of things into the budget the best that we can.
Something on that is back on the concrete siding, like hardy board type, is those patterns are very flexible. I mean, when I say flexible, you have a wider choice, and also I personally like that direction, and the reason I do is the fire retardant is, and especially with the density of the buildings, is very important to me. But another one that's also that's important is that the upkeep, the concrete, you can get it where it's pre-stained, and I don't know the expense on that one, but also it binds better, and you don't have problems with water, like on if there's any waters, or also another thing I'd like for y'all to just consider is, especially with the north sides more than the south, but you might want to have something across those bottoms, east and south, to protect on snow buildup, because on the north sides, I think you're going to be having probably a minimum of 3 feet build up on the building.
Yes, so we took that into consideration, and one of the things we did for that is all these north entrances are actually recessed, and they have a roof over top to protect them from the elements. And the only we did have an entrance on this north side, but we moved that to the front. And we'll put like a decorative awning over that, which will also help break up those facades. And the only other north facing door we have right now, and again, we can add some roof over top of this door, but it's out to this porch and rear entry to this building. So we limited it pretty well. And for the most part, we'll have a few spots where we're going to have to think through protection a little bit more, but I think we've gotten most of it pretty well protected in the design. So. I'll try to pull up some of these materials really quick too to show you.
Well, and we have them like.
Yeah, you can't really see on our screen, but we have some samples of some of the actual wood tones, and next time we're in town, we can bring those by.
Yep.
But do you remember the manufacturer on this?
Try to design the water.
Is that a concrete material or?
Yeah, so this is it's basically you can do either Laura, which is a manufacturer, or the James Hardy brand. And what you do is you send it off to this company called Woodtone. And they have shake, they have vertical, they have lots of other things, but there's different. I can try to get as close as I can to the monitor so you can see the
wood grain there.
Yeah.
And then the finishes are wood in nature. So when it would pick up that stain,
All right.
it's pretty convincing. It's obviously not as warm as the real stuff, but also way less maintenance. So
Well, I could just tell you, we've had some discussion with regard to those kinds of looks and so on. And I know, and I know, number one, everyone on the commission isn't in total agreement on this.
Okay.
Um, uh, Historically, wood buildings that are painted, you don't see a lot of that grain in it.
Right.
So that's I personally don't think there's a big importance in seeing the
Right.
wood grain and things like that.
Okay.
It would make it more look like houses historically. The other thing is with colors, we don't have a we don't determine what we don't have a say as to what color is appropriate or not, but there is a recommendation. There has been on our website associated with colors, and that is just a recommendation to keep so-called historically appropriate palette. And along that line, I would prefer not to have too bright colors and associated with the buildings. The more muted ones associated with the historic color palette. But that's just a recommendation.
Yeah, I do think that that's where our second charrette is going to be really helpful because I 100% understand where you're coming from. But you know, there's a coral that I saw, there's a nice purple. Those may be the buildings that you all talk about to each other, but they do exist. And some people like the colors. So
No, I know. I used to live in Norway, and if you know what those buildings look like, they're bright colors, and they
yeah,
look really nice. But our question is whether how appropriate that is that in the Lake City's historic district. And I personally don't think that Scandinavian kind of color patterns are appropriate here. The whole idea is to have this fit in with the look of an old mining town. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. No, and we want to respect that. What we were going to do is come up with a few different color, like probably two color palettes, and bring that to that conversation with the rest of the town and kind of show and maybe even bring some samples with us so that everybody can see the difference between the cement board versus an aluminum versus a real material and kind of have some of those materiality conversations. But we can definitely tone some of the colors down if we need to. So.
I believe, Joe, you had asked the other members had any questions or comments about the siding. And
About what?
about the siding before I chimed in, you were trying to get feedback from them, and I chimed in, and I think I kind of,
You think you cut that off? Does anybody have any?
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to know about what kind of siding was appropriate given the fire resistance codes and so on. I think Jonathan has mentioned both the cement board kind of stuff as well as treated wood. I'm curious. Well, yeah, okay. I'm just curious because you haven't brought it up. I mean, people are asking us about this rusted metal siding. Is that something that you've dealt with? Is that more expensive than the other things?
We have used it in the past. I think my hesitation with it is more, we don't want it to feel kind of fake or like Disneyland where we've tried to create a look that is forced. We would rather it be more natural, and then if it patinas over time naturally and creates that look,
Right.
I think that makes sense. But for us to try to create that, to me, almost feels like we're trying too hard, if that makes sense. So I think, we could add some metal to it that could potentially patina, but I wouldn't want to force it personally. But if that's the direction we're given, we can definitely add something like that into the design.
I actually I think I agree with what y'all are proposing because I think that the size and the closeness of the road having that rusty metal is going to be look to me it'll be more like a warehouse or something instead of
Yeah.
I like what y'all are proposing better than when I was saying on some type of metal or something. I was just thinking about the, protecting those areas of, where, like the north sides where it doesn't, melt off. I wasn't talking about all around.
Judd, are you talking about some wainscoting or something like that, or what are you thinking of?
Well, I was just going to bring up, and y'all have already, I agree with what, Mike has said, and also Kenny. I really like, the proposal. I really like the thought that y'all put into it, and I wouldn't be saying this if I didn't mean it. What I was thinking about is I was more concerned on where the north side areas, or where when it comes off, and I see you have protection on that off the roof, which is very, smart, but I do think you need to come up, like where that door is that you're showing now. Man, I tell you, that's gonna be a bear to,
So that's a storage room. And we can add a awning over top, but just an exterior storage room. The main entrance is actually underneath this canopy. It's a little hard to see, but you actually have to go back into a recess, so that will stay pretty clean most of the year. But I understand that, against the building, we may need to do some consideration of maybe we raise the foundation a little bit or make it look like it is, and maybe we could add a bit of metal around the bottom to help protect some of that from ice, so the siding doesn't get damaged. So we can definitely look at those things too.
okay, two things, real quick. I'm not saying if the products that you are working on, if you talk to their engineers and they say that's not a problem, there might be some kind of ice deck shield that's between that or something, there. I'm just letting you know where that door is, with that little area, that whole area in there. I've been here a long time, my man, and that's going to be a pain. And I know you're talking about back on expenditures, even if you had something for, not the whole sidewalk or anything, but at least around there that would be heated. But that is a problem area, which has nothing to do with, what we're, I got off subject. I apologize, everyone.
No, that's helpful.
Yeah, no, and maybe we can think through, maybe there's a way to add some sort of awning along the north side of some of the buildings to help protect the sidewalk. Those are things we can definitely look into. We did, like I say, try to recess the entryways, and these storage units probably need some protection too. So we can definitely look at that, and maybe we just add an awning or a roof over those doors for access reasons. So that's really good feedback. You guys live it every day, and so getting that feedback is really helpful.
I guess I'll go next, since we're still in rotation here on comments. Look, I can't wait to see the color palette. I do like, and even the renderings that were sent, the color differentiations between the buildings, consistent color across, I think is, just kind of, it washes everything out. I think that separation looks good. I think one of the things just to consider is on the fronts of the Henson spacing. I see the awning and roof kind of for the entranceways in the middle. Maybe it's worth carrying some of the visual separation between first and second floor just on the street facing. So almost potentially carrying those lines over. And I know you guys are going to continue to develop the renderings, taking cues from window treatments from around, generally, what you see around, especially on wood buildings, case window treatment around the outsides and whatnot, that maybe don't show up as much on the renderings. But as you guys progress drawings, it would be good to kind of see what you're thinking around the window decorative aspects, as well as potentially separation. But I do like the color differentiations just from a separation of building. So it's just gonna be good to see when you guys come for public review the color palettes that you bring.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll come up with like I said, a few different options for that. And one thing we always like to do, like you're mentioning, is we like to make each building one color, so that way
Yeah.
it's seen as one building and not just kind of cut up by each facade being a slightly different color. We don't like doing that. But we I think that helps separate the look. But yeah, these doors actually out here are actually going to be the fire riser room.
Okay.
And so that's just going to be accessed during an emergency.
Entrance is on the backside by the
Yeah, and
park.
the entrance is in this recess here
Okay.
on off the side. So those things we'll kind of work through, but we could look at adding some covering over the porch to make that more usable too. So there's things there we could add for sure.
Yeah. So next kind of question is really, it's not regarding the buildings themselves, but, and I know you don't have your engineer on, but thinking about site plans, and drainage, we've got a pretty high density lot. What are you guys kind of proposing from an impervious cover perspective? And how does that fit against the guidelines? And then from a drainage perspective, are you planning to drain, toward the creek that's, I guess that's the creek coming off Pete's Lake, or the drainage side, that little ditch, it's a creek.
Yeah.
And kind of what are you thinking about from site drainage? Yeah.
So, so in our other meetings, we've had a lot of different conversations about this. There's a lot of options kind of floating around right now. There's a little area to the northwest across the street that we were looking at potentially using. The probably the thing we're leaning toward the most would be doing kind of a dry well underneath the parking area.
Okay.
And so that would be kind of like a gravel pit that would hold water on
Your
site.
retention pond, basically.
Yeah,
Covered
but it's all
retention.
underneath the
Yep.
asphalt there. So those are the things we're currently studying. We don't want to drain anything directly into the water. It would all be collected on site and then
Okay.
slowly percolated into the groundwater. So,
All right. Very good.
yep.
Mike, I think I'm done. I think you might be next in rotation.
Sorry, I'm taking notes. I'm the secretary.
Oh,
You don't have to take real detailed notes for workshops, Mike.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind. Um, yeah, and kind of following up on is that going to be an asphalt parking lot?
good question.
Yeah, we've kind of talked through different options. I think that's kind of where we were leaning. There are pervious versions of that allow water to drain through, but one of the concerns would be the freeze thaw and that kind of breaking up over time. But our plan was to make it some sort of a hard surface, just for the longevity of the parking stalls and clearly noting where people can park so it doesn't become kind of muddied up. If we did a gravel parking area, it would probably be difficult for people to fit. So those are things we would also take feedback on if there's a preference between what type of surface it is. We can look into that.
And we've also had a lot of good and interesting conversations about planning for accessibility. And in those conversations, accessible parking was highlighted as something that is needed in more units than what we would typically be required to have per code.
Yeah, essentially this whole site needs one unit. Um, and we're proposing, I think, 4 parking stalls, and we're going to make more of the ground floor units accessible. So in the future, if people need that, then they can have that. There's also a little bit of a change to this layout. There's a fire turnaround that we had to add up on the north side, and we're using that as an ADA stall at the same time. So it has that accessibility space as part of that turnaround. So kind of a good use of space. So there'll be a kind of a stall on either end, and then we're looking at other spaces where we can put in ADA stalls as well. So.
Okay, before I forget what I'm thinking of here, I'll add in a couple things. One, I'll go back to, I said I was curious about the rusted metal siding and so on. I really like what you said about your skepticism on it and so on, and the whole idea of metal looking siding with metal roof. I don't think that fits in with the look of Old Lake City. So I'm glad to hear what you said. I guess I'd just go back to, I think Judd mentioned it in the beginning, some kind of trim around the windows, and we already spoke a bit about some differentiation from one building to the other. I'm going to be very interested to see what you come up with after this discussion. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
what I was just gonna say, one other thing that might help with some of our thinking behind this was we wanted to make it feel like, because sometimes when you try to make things feel historic, it kind of takes away from what is already historic in the town. And so one of the thoughts we had with the siding colors was, what if somebody were like, bought this house over time and then they ended up painting the wood siding, which happens a lot for maintenance and to protect the wood and things like that. And so that was kind of some of the thinking, was maybe this was an evolution of that history. And so it's not trying to mimic too much what's already there to take away from it, but to add to it by feeling a little bit different. And so that was some of the thinking there, if that's helpful.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea is, I mean, you're not building something to look like an old mining town. It just needs to fit in with what's
Right.
already here.
Yeah.
Well, really, truly, personally, can't tell you how much that means, Joe.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Hey,
And
talk. I'm
I
sorry.
grew up in a small town with my home was over 100 years old, and so I very much get that feeling and that history. And I had a tin roof, and you could hear it rain, and there's just a lot of nostalgia for me around that. And I think creating that, but not going too far, is kind of that balance we're trying to strike.
Hey,
I'm not sure how it fits into a discussion from a historical commission, but I'm just wondering about public areas
that's where I was going, Mike.
and bring
Thanks
up,
for
barbecue pits and bike racks and how people are going to actually live and interact in here. And I was,
Great question.
Yeah. So on the back units themselves, each person has their own kind of private porch area. And then there's these kind of walkways that could potentially be pushed and pulled to create separate deck areas that people could utilize as a community space. But all these back units, every single one of those has its own dedicated porch. And then we created this little, we're calling it more of like a dock, because we didn't have a lot of space on site to add an amenity, and we really wanted to utilize its access to the water. And so that was the idea we came up with, was to kind of add this little um, basically raised dock area that it could eventually have walls and a roof if we wanted to use it, year round. But we wanted to give this kind of outdoor space where you could have grilling, seating areas, and it can get bigger or smaller depending on like what we kind of decide as we kind of work through the overall final design. But it's definitely it could be repeated as well. So if it does well and a lot of people are using it, we could maybe add another one a little further down. Um, and it could be open to the public, or it can just be a private kind of thing. So there's a lot of options with that public space.
But
So
to further that's the second part of the charrette. Our second charrette is to bring some options, kind of get a feeling of what people would actually use, because that's more important than what we think is what people actually want to see.
yeah.
Whether it's a community garden space or
Yeah, so for that meeting, we may actually do an option where it's just an open deck like this, but we make it a gazebo, or maybe we make it to where you could open and close the walls a little bit so that it's protected during the winter a little bit. So there's a lot of different things we can kind of look at with that space.
Is
yeah,
there a public trail that goes along the river there or not? Maybe Lex
There
can
is.
answer that.
There is today.
Yeah, and we are utilizing that a little bit for some of the circulation to some of the staircases around the units, but we do want to maintain that as a public path as well. It has had to change shape a little bit to allow for the buildings to fit in there, but we do want to keep that as a public accessible space, as well as also utilizing some of it as our circulation.
yeah, that's kind of what we heard, is that along the river is the most important part to
Yeah,
try to protect.
and that's why we thought that was kind of nice, because somebody that maybe goes on a jog or a walk could stop and sit by the water, and it would be a nice place for not only the people that live here, but neighbors, and maybe it's a place where people can get to know each other a little bit more.
Mhm.
Well, this is not something that we take into account in approving your plans and so on. And so I don't think we want to spend too much time on it here, but it is something that you need to make sure gets brought up at the public meeting and all that stuff. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Anybody have any more comments about this?
I don't.
I think we got the right group working on it.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, do you guys have any questions you have for us?
I mean,
Go ahead.
I have some. So what's your feeling on shakes?
Shake for what?
What are
Uh,
shakes?
Exciting.
Yeah, no, milkshakes, no. So it's like an element we've thought about is like how to bring in like shake siding or decorative elements to.
Shake siding has not been something that's used much historically in the town.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Joe, but is the thinking on shakes at like top level or bottom level or entire building height? What are your, I mean, just to kind of, I'm trying to visualize here. I know what they are.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah. I
Or-
am open
Right.
to. I wanted to get your opinion.
I think if we were to use it, it would probably be the same color and is an accent more so than a full siding material. But yeah,
I
it
personally,
maybe to break
personally-
up the gable or something like that.
Well, shakes were used on roofs a lot. They were used on some things, but they weren't used for full siding much at all. But I don't have an issue with their use to some extent.
Okay.
It's the same way I feel. Like I wouldn't want the whole front or, but if it be accented, I wouldn't have a problem.
Yeah. Same feeling.
Agree. I mean, feels like more of a coastal
Right.
Nantucket vibe than a Lake City vibe.
Yeah, I think on my end, I do like the cleanliness of it just being kind of one constant material where it's that vertical or horizontal. But yeah, we can if we do go that route with anything, we definitely show you like what it looks like in the renderings. So
Yeah.
Well, let me put this out there. What do you guys think about? I mean, I think all of this has vertical siding. I mean, a lot. Would there be any interest in the horizontal lap siding that's on a lot of the buildings here? Is that something that's practical or not?
One thing on what Joe just stated is if it's horizontal, it'll perception wise, it'll give it perception of being longer instead of so tall. But that's more of y'all's department. But it seems like for that size of buildings, horizontal would be preferable to vertical.
I think the reason we used so much of the vertical was just we wanted them to feel more narrow, and that was what you get when you go vertical is they feel a little bit more narrow, more of these shotgun style homes. But we can definitely look at adding in some variation there.
And then I was just making a statement. It's not. I think y'all done a great job, and everybody has different opinions and all. I've spent a lot of time, and it's very well done in my opinion. Thank you.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Hey, maybe
I agree with that.
maybe not appropriate for this call today, but I'm thinking about the comment I made earlier about impervious cover and drainage. I mean, snow removal being the other. If there's thought around any of the land being used for for pushing snow for stuff gets piled up when you've got to clear lots. Is that intended for being on lot, or is the city gonna truck it out, Lex?
And that is yet to be discussed. I mean, it's something that will have to be addressed, and it really depends on what kind of funding mechanism we come up with, if it's a public or private partnership.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of extra stuff, other things have to be decided before we can
Yeah,
really
I'm sure
do
there
that.
are. And like I said, it may not have been appropriate. It's just kind of, consideration around kind of livability and as well as what's going to happen, just more broadly in the neighborhood, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
I
it's
would hope
definitely-
those things get brought up and discussed at the public meeting about it. And I don't think we need to spend more time on it
Yeah,
here.
that's fine.
If nobody has any more, I'll ask the architects here first. Are there any last things that you might want to bring up and make sure that we think about?
No, I think we have good direction, and I think everything we've talked about is doable, and we'll keep working on it. So
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Is there any last thing from any members of the board here or Lex?
Do we
that you
have
wanna
a
bring up?
do we have a target date for that second charrette?
we haven't set that yet. The goal was to get your feedback, implement that. Maybe we'll send out another packet of renderings with those updates, just to make sure we're all comfortable. And then we were going to schedule when there's more people around. I think that's one of the concerns is right now, if we did it, there wouldn't be as many people to give input.
Yeah, so I mean, probably mid to late May or early June.
Okay,
Yeah, so the second homeowners that are in town will have an opportunity to participate.
okay, with that, I want to thank you all for coming in and participating in this. And it's 2:57, and I'll close the workshop for the Lake City Historic Preservation Commission. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
You guys
Thank you.
have a good day. Bye.
Thanks,
See ya.
You too.
Bye. Thank you.